In part 1, we left off on the Four Corners with Sperry's. But before we leave Sperry's and head north up Huron Avenue, there's a couple other little things I'd like to share with you about Sperry's. The first ones that we're going to look at are the most recent pictures of the interior and what it used to look like back in its heyday. Now, looking at the more current pictures of Sperry's, I was amazed at how large a store Sperry's was. This is looking at the rear of the store. I remember as a boy coming in here and being able to go down the back stairs because that was the fastest way to the hardware department. And I went there while my mom or my aunts went upstairs where the women's clothes were. This gives you a great shot of the elevators. You can't remember the elevators at Sperry's without remembering the elevator operator, Lula Petty. She was Sperry's elevator operator for 20 years, and she was often called the store's unofficial greeter. One longtime co-worker described her as the best public relations worker any store could have. When you think of Sperry's, this is the interior that most folks remember. Sperry's didn't forget where they came from, and that was Sperry's Hardware across the street. And so they had a hardware department. It was in the basement, and normally it was accessed by the back stairs. The second thing I wanted to share with you is Port Huron's most famous actress, Colleen Moore. Colleen was born, actually Kathleen Morrison, in Port Huron in 1901 or thereabouts. Moore's family lived across Lincoln Street from the Stone Arch at the entrance of Pine Grove Park, while other directories also say they lived on Ontario Street. I thought you might enjoy seeing a short movie clip of one of the movies she was in. At the height of her popularity, her studio salary shot up to $12,000 a week, second only to $17,000 commanded by the cowboy star Tom Mix. Since I was living in fairyland, Miss Moore later recalled, I loved the work. I could hardly wait to get to work in the morning. She made nearly 100 silent movies and a handful of talkies. Then, in 1931, she retired at the peak of her career. Her decision shocked the industry, but she never expressed any regrets. Colleen Moore always had a love of dollhouses, but after she retired, she decided she would make the dollhouse of her dreams. The dollhouse of her dreams turned out to be the castle of her dreams. And of course she had the resources to make this castle of her dreams come true. Horace Jackson, an architect and set designer who worked for First National Studios, created the floor plan and layout of the castle, with the basic idea that the architecture must have no sense of reality. We must invent a structure that is everybody's conception of an enchanted castle. Moore also enlisted the help of art director and interior designer Harold Grieve. Grieve had designed the interiors of Moore's actual mansion, so he was a natural to create the interiors of her fantasy castle. By 1935, more than 700 individuals had lent their expertise. The price tag for this 9-foot by 8-foot by 8-foot palace, containing more than 2,000 miniatures, was nearly $500,000. This castle is on a permanent exhibit in the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. Each room has a story, and I don't have time to go into each story, but I'll give you a taste. In the princess bedroom, the chairs here are platinum, and they're set with diamonds. The backs are made from a pair of emerald and diamond lapel clips that belonged to Colleen Moore. She decided that she would rather use the clips in the castle than wear them herself. In the bedroom of the prince, Moore had a taxidermist use an ermine skin and the teeth of a mouse to create the miniature white bear on the rug. So, what does all this have to do with Sperry? In a 1942 interview, Colleen Moore says, I remember attending kindergarten in Grace Episcopal Church. I also remember a party my mother gave for my 4th birthday. I bit Claire Sperry's finger so hard that he got really mad, and we had an awful rumpus. I got spanked as a result. In 1942, she returned to Port Huron with her fairy castle and repaid Claire Sperry for the bitten finger. The castle was on display for a week at Sperry's, where thousands of people lined up for a glimpse. Let's take a walk down Huron Avenue and look at the next 4 stores next to Sperry's. Most people see one thing when they look at them today, but when I look at them, I see 4 different stores. I see Diana's, I see George Innes, I see J.C. Penney, and I see the Carroll House. Those are the stores that I grew up with. First business we want to take a look at is Diana's Sweet Shop. I don't think there's anybody that was alive from 1926 to 2001, the years they were open, that didn't stop in at one time or another for a lunch or a treat. And in 1926, this was a pretty up-to-date store. But as other restaurants, as time grew on, were changing their motif and trying to become more modern, the store stayed the same. And it was like you walked into another century when you walked through the front doors and sit in an old-time booth with an old-time jukebox. It was pretty amazing, and the food was excellent. June 2nd, 2001, the Delagianis brothers retired. And they posted this sign that says, "To all our friends, after 75 years in business, Diana's Sweet Shop is closing its doors Saturday, June 2nd, 2001. We are retiring. Our father, Constantine Gus Delagianis, in partnership with his brother, George W. Dallas, built Diana's Sweet Shop at this location in 1926. People thought another piece of Port Huron history was gone. Well, it's not gone, it just moved to another location, Nashville, Tennessee. In 2010, the Gibson Company moved the interior of the store and reconstructed it in Nashville. And it looks just like the Port Huron store, with a couple of small variances. I'm so glad that they didn't put it into a museum. I like the idea that it's being used by another generation, and other people are experiencing the charm and the uniqueness of Diana's Sweet Shop. Next to Diana's Sweet Shop was George Innes Menswear. This was the quality men's store. As far as clothing was concerned, it was their first store, at least the first one that I know about. Later on, they moved further down the block. It was a small store with clothing racks on both sides and very little room to get down the middle, it seemed like. I bought the outfits you see me in here at this store. I know, what was I thinking? Alright, let's move on down to what used to be J.C. Penney store, and the store next to it, the Carroll House. It looks like in this particular picture, after the Carroll House went out of business, J.C. Penney expanded their business and took over both stores and put one facade on the front. But originally, you can see there were 2 separate stores. I'm including a short movie clip here. This is looking south on Huron Avenue, and it's slowed it down so that things don't rush by. That's why the people are walking so slow. But you can see Cunningham's there on the corner, and then you'll be coming up to Sperry's. This was during the Christmas time, and of course you can see the reindeer and sleds they always have out in front. I did this for 2 reasons, this clip. The first one is you're going to see a real cute little guy. That's me. And my mom would be charged for cruelty today if I was going around in a harness, but she got away with it back then. But the second reason I did it is because of the signage on the J.C. Penney and the George Ennis building. Both store signages were in yellow, but if I recall, the J.C. Penney was a brighter yellow, and it did really stand out. In 1898, this property was occupied by the St. Clair Hotel, a large 4-story hotel. And the St. Clair had moved, 3 different times, I believe, or 3 different hotels in the city. 2 of the hotels were on Butler Street. One was at the foot of Butler Street by the White Star Docks, and the other one was in the 300 block of Butler Street. Of course, Butler Street is now known as Grand River, but we'll get into those in another video. Previous to the St. Clair Hotel, this building was occupied by the Huron House. And same building, a different name, but the Huron House had been around for a long time. It was the best $2 a day hotel in the city, they said. This is what the Huron House looked like in the 1860s. It was at the same location, and it is said that General Grant reviewed the troops from this balcony. So whatever happened to this hotel that allowed the building of J.C. Penney's and the Cara House at the same location? Well, in 1902, the St. Clair Hotel caught on fire and burnt to the ground. Here you can look through and see the First Baptist Church. This concludes Part 2 of Port Huron, Past and Present. Part 3 will look at Montgomery Ward's on the other side of the street, and then stroll down Huron Avenue and look at some of the other stores of today and yesterday.